What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the third edition of Turn 2, an MLB betting show presented to you by the Gold Sheet and WagerTalk Media. I'm your host, Eric Pauly, the Director of Analytical Content at GoldSheet.com, joined with my colleague, Matt Joseph, Sports Memo Handicapper, once again for the third edition. Today, we're going to be discussing some futures markets like AL NL Rookie of the Year, AL NL Cy Young Award. Talk to me, Matt. How are you? How's your week been so far?
Doing well so far. The irony of what we're doing today is I believe neither of us can actually bet on these things because in our respective states, Virginia and New York, they're not available, which is the irony of this whole thing. But I still think that it's an interesting market to say the least.
Yeah, it is certainly an interesting market, and it's certainly annoying that we're incapable of betting on these markets in our respective states. I have no idea why we're not allowed to. Maybe they're scared of the money coming in from New York and Virginia, that they don't want to take it. They're really going to make me go over the bridge to New Jersey just to take a look at all these bets if they really must. If I must, I must. But briefly want to remind everybody that every single day the Gold Sheet Daily MLB stat sheet can be found at goldsheet.com. And if you're interested in just finding out some picks directly, you can find Gold Sheet's picks at WagerTalk and sportsmemo.com. You can also find Matt and his plays on sportsmemo.com. But without further ado, Matt, it's certainly annoying we can't get down this, and we definitely missed the best of this number. But let's start talking about the National League Rookie of the Year, because the conversation all over Twitter, all over all social medias, deservingly so, are now around Elly De La Cruz, the number one prospect in baseball. Now played 2 MLB games last night. He had, I think, 2 strikeouts, a triple, a home run. That was a absolute moonshot, showcasing his range in the field, his speed on the base pass, his ability to hit for power and exit velo. So now Elly De La Cruz in the past couple of days, his odds have dropped immensely to be the Rookie of the Year in the National League. After just 2 MLB games, he's down to plus 300 odds on DraftKings, if the updated market there. But there's another candidate right there. It's plus 350 at DraftKings, excuse me. Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks has been with the organization all year long. He had a 4-hit game, including a dinger last night. He's minus 135, or understandably so, the favorite. But Matt, I got to hear from you. Obviously, there's no value in betting Elly De La Cruz now at 350, because you could have gotten over a plus 1,000 over a week ago before we even got called up. But what do you make of this Rookie of the Year award race now? Is it really just a 2-dog race between Carroll and De La Cruz, or is it kind of crazy that De La Cruz is getting all this hype, considering how good of a season Carroll has been having?
Well, it's funny because Arizona purposely put Carroll in this situation. They played him a certain amount of games so that way he would be able to go for the Rookie of the Year. I'm certainly somebody in this kind of futures market. I never play a minus, so I would certainly never play Corbin Carroll at minus 135, even if he is the favorite. And as you mentioned, EDLC, you could have gotten him at a much better number. So I hate chasing things, and I hate playing a small sample size. I mean, he could go all of a sudden and have a terrible couple weeks and then, kind of disappear a little bit. You look at Kodai Senga, who was probably the odds-on favorite before the season began, or at least in the top 3. And now he's kind of just in the middle of the pack there. You see he's 30-1. And look, here's an opportunity for a guy. If he does pitch well, he's going to pitch in a pennant race. He's going to have a lot more eyeballs on him. If he suddenly gets hot, I mean, listen, you're only going to sprinkle in this market anyway. But 30-1 for Kodai Senga, who's capable and will be having more eyeballs on him later on in the season. There might be a little bit of value there. It is Carroll's probably to lose, but there's certainly some people behind him that you could take a look at.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think just the point that we're both making here is if you're betting Elly De La Cruz now plus 350, you're making a bad bet. Considering, 1, the odds you could have gotten at, 2, you're overreacting to a sample size. While I have no doubts that he's going to be a plus player, ideally for a majority of his career, that just getting in at that number compared to how well Corbin Carroll has played throughout the entire season is kind of nutty. But taking a look at some of the guys who are just behind him, so we have Francisco Alvarez of the Mets playing very well offensively and defensively. You have James Outman of the Dodgers, who at one point was leading this pack. Him and Corbin Carroll looked like a little 2-man race. He fell off the ladder because he has a strikeout problem, and he is an older rookie too, so maybe takes away. We discussed Senga. Brett Beatty is debatable. Peter Steer is good, but the one player, or the 2 players looking at, I guess now the 3, I should say, is I think it's very tough for a pitcher to win this award solely because they pitch every 5 days. One bad start kind of looks more of a stain to them, and also it's more difficult as a pitcher if you're going out there every single day and performing. It's easier to see. But Talk to me about Yuri Perez, Matt. Are you fully a believer in this hype train? He's obviously looked great in his limited MLB starts. Had not like I don't want to say hiccups, but he has shown he is still a 20-year-old kid. What are your thoughts on a Yuri Perez at 40-1?
I can't do it. He's only going 5 innings. I mean, the Marlins have pretty much
Mm-hmm.
said without saying he's going 5 innings a game. The market has been rather interesting in trying to project his K props. It was too low to start. Now it's too high because, he is only going 5 innings. And, it was funny when his number was pretty high in Colorado and everybody jumped on the over. They're like, oh, man, he's going to go over it. And of course, Colorado kind of, saved that thing and it went under. So, I can't put any money on a 5-inning pitcher. Andrew Abbott was interesting. He made a nice, solid debut, the lefty for the Reds. He obviously has to follow it up. The funny thing about this market is, with regards to a pitcher, he could come up and throw like 4 or 5 great outings and put himself right into the mix. I'm a guy who's holding a preseason ticket on Andrew Painter. Now, obviously, he got hurt in spring training, and so that ticket's dead now. But if Andrew Painter, in theory, started out with the Phillies and started pitching very well, then that was a really good ticket to have. So you talked about it. It's hard for a pitcher to win this award because they only go every 5 days, and they have to be so good in their starts.
Yeah, I totally agree. 2 more players with my eyes on, though. We have Jordan Walker and Matt McLain, both 50-1. Walker's case, he started off the season on a great note. St. Louis put him back down to AAA, but brought him up again recently. He went yard 2 nights ago. Matt McLain now, too. He's been playing some great baseball, batting over almost 320, 324, I want to say, in his limited action in the MLB. But just considering now that the Elly De La Cruz hype train is there, there's just no way voters are voting for McLain, right?
Yeah, and it's only 21 games for him. The fact that the Reds have a bunch of candidates doesn't help. Now, this is not like the Heisman vote where two guys on the same team will kind of split some of the stuff for some of the voters. But yeah, it certainly won't help. McLain is going to have to be over and above when you've got a guy like EDLC in your lineup.
Yeah, especially with Encarnacion Strand hanging out there in AAA as well when he gets called up to that Reds roster. We certainly might be looking at the best team of the NL Central, hands down. Don't want to get too crazy there, but again, that value in one Elly De La Cruz Rookie of the Year, unfortunately gone, and that value in any futures for the Reds to win the NL Central, also disappearing in front of our eyes. But let's pivot now to the American League Rookie of the Year. Right now, Masataka Yoshida plus 125, the favorite. He, of course, was touted as the Japanese Juan Soto before signing a big deal to come to Boston. If he starts to start the season, one of the best hitters in baseball at the current moment. You got guys like Josh Jung, who's been playing incredibly well, Hunter Brown pitching well, Esty Ruiz, who on the Triple Athletics is putting up some gaudy numbers in terms of hits, stolen bases. You also have Royce Lewis doing a little bit better. But, I mean, looking at this list, Matt, for AL Rookie of the Year, it's harder to say with Corbin Carroll because obviously Elly De La Cruz just came into this scene. So barring injury, it's definitely a 2-man race there. But barring injury in the AL Rookie of the Year race, it's Masataka Yoshida or bust. Is that correct to say, or are you looking deeper down the board for anybody?
Well, I mean, pretty much a lot of the guys that have pedigree have been called up. There's nobody who's like an instant, guy who it seems like when you look down the list. And I find it funny when they list some of these guys, like, Joey Wentz is down there and DL Hall's down there, Mason Miller. Mason Miller might have had a shot if he didn't get hurt. You look at a guy like, and it's ironic because the Rookie of the Year, you obviously look at the hitters first. You mentioned that the pitchers have a problem, but if you're really thinking about the impact of a guy like Cano, the reliever for the Orioles. Look, he gets the high impact innings for Baltimore, and for the longest time, and I don't know if he still hasn't given up a run, but for the longest time, he didn't give up a run, and he's in those high impact innings for the Orioles. And I understand that the voters don't think that deep, and he's got no shot whatsoever. But if you're thinking about the Cano kid in Baltimore, like he obviously is one of the most important rookies that is listed on this list.
Yeah, and I think the 50-1 odds reflect that. Going back to the allowing a run, I do not know if it was an earned run because I don't know if he inherited a runner, but he definitely did let up a base hit that led to a run against the Milwaukee Brewers in that first game. And I know this very well because that tied the game. Brewers ended up winning and beating the Orioles. I was an Orioles backer that day, but I think that's a great point. I think it's still just crazy to see like Grayson Rodriguez, he has been sent back down. Like there's so many guys that are like very far up the board. Where in the National League, like maybe you take a flyer on an Encarnacion Strand and some of the other players we mentioned that have really high odds just because if Corbin Carroll gets injured and say Elly De La Cruz for whatever reason just doesn't perform to the way he's performed his first two games, which is, easy to see. It's only a small sample size. Then that race is a little bit wide open. Here, though, outside of Yoshida, Josh Jung, maybe Hunter Brown, S.T. Ruiz, like Anthony Volpe, like he's had some cool moments. Of course, as a Yankee shortstop, like 30-1. Like, is that really a great price? Also, Gunnar Henderson, like he came into the season as one of the favorites to win the award. Bat hasn't picked up. Like, is there any deep sleepers here? I know you mentioned Cano, but like talking even deeper down the board because I'm not seeing any.
No, it's not. As I said, I mean, it's tough because he's on the worst team in baseball, but Mason Miller, as I said, was pretty good at the start of his career, but then he got hurt. And so now, and obviously he's 0-2 already, so he's not going to have a good record. So you're really just taking a guy who has good numbers. He's got a whip under 1. He's got 22 strikeouts in those 4 starts, but A, he's hurt, and B, he plays for the worst team in baseball. So nothing is going to help him. Nobody's going to be watching his games. But yeah, Mason Miller would be the guy I would have considered, but obviously he's priced like the long shot he currently is.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like a great time to have attacked, again, more so the National League Rookie of the Year. And just in general for the future, obviously this season, we're 60 plus games in. Still early, but like we are in the thick of baseball season. It is June 8th. We're not in that stage where we could say we're so far, too early to really be making certain claims. Like, no, we could certainly start making some decisions and so having some real structured thoughts on some of these players. But for the future, though, betting a player even before they've been called up is a worthwhile strategy for either league, because if you time it well, like Elly De La Cruz, you could have gotten even a month ago, you probably were looking at maybe a 50-1 ticket on this guy. Terms even in the beginning of the season, maybe even 200-1, because obviously you're going to get some market overreaction on guys like Jordan Walker, who started off getting Ted Williams comparisons, who was then sent down to the minor leagues not too long after that. So Matt, what are your thoughts on trying to capitalize on this market in early March, or I should say mid-March, early April, when you can get guys like Yordan Alvarez, when he came up, didn't come up till June, he won the award. Michael Harris last year didn't come up until June, he won an award. There's certainly value in waiting and not betting the chalk once they show themselves to be chalk early in the season, right?
Yeah, and plus for me, this is a sprinkle market. This is not a full unit market because it's tough with everything that kind of happens, because we'll talk about the Cy Youngs in just a moment. All the Cy Young favorites are favorites for a reason right now, but they could get hurt and somebody behind them could certainly move up. So that's why this is a market that when I do dabble in it, it's, a quarter unit and I maybe put it on 1 or 2 different guys. And this is where you kind of do your research before the season. All right, who's the number 1 prospect? When do we think he's going to get called up? A lot of the favorites, as we mentioned, Kodai Senga was probably one of the favorites in this market because everybody saw him coming up. He had all the hype. He was playing for the Mets and everything. And now he's 30-1. So there's positives and negatives to betting early. You're probably getting a better number on Senga now, with a little bit of body of work. But certainly before the season, you thought that he was going to win the award. And so there are pros and cons to waiting and pros and cons to playing it now. Just make sure that when you're betting your unit size, it's not a full unit. This is one of those speculative markets, I feel like.
100% agreed. And just another general PSA for especially Rookie of the Year markets in baseball is you don't need to just pick one guy and just continue to bet them. You can build a portfolio of bets. If you have 4 guys all at 50-1 to win and one of them win, if you allocate your units properly, you're still coming up with a big payday. So not something where you need to be focusing in on, I just think Corbin Carroll is the best player. I didn't get in on him. Now minus 125. Let's, drop 5 units on that. That's absolutely the wrong way to think about it. You should have certainly maybe in the beginning of the season, if you liked him, sprinkled some there. Maybe he had like a little bit of a downswing. You saw James Outman coming up. You saw some mumblings about, you saw Jordan Walker getting heated up. You could have built yourself a little bit of a portfolio of future bets. And that's kind of the way you need to think about it and start framing your mind is, of course, you obviously want to be that guy who can show a ticket on a 50-1 long shot. And you can still do that while also having a couple other long shots there as well. Sure, it eats into the profit, but if you're unit sizing it properly, it's not eating into really anything. It's still just gravy, and you have more bites at the apple there of hitting. And again, simply put, you're just taking good bets. That's the name of the game. So definitely something to consider is while betting early can certainly have its downfalls because you could be missing some greater numbers as the season goes on. It also could be a good thing because you could see some value. And conversely, betting some guys who have big plus money now could be a good play because injuries are still a thing. We never want to see it happen, but if Corbin Carroll, for example, goes down, which we absolutely hope does not happen, next thing you know, we have a wide open Rookie of the Year race in the National League. Same with Yoshida in the American League. But let's pivot to Cy Young, where this exact thing, both of those statements in terms of building a portfolio as well as injuries could have an issue. So like taking a look deeper down the board, like a Pablo Lopez 90-1, he's obviously pitched very well since coming over from Miami. John Gray, who had another fantastic start, who started the season a little bit bumpy. Like at that point though, like I feel like you're asking for like too many things to go in your direction at this point to really win a bet on somebody who's priced that way. Like I could see a Javier because if I'm looking at George Kirby, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, Joe Ryan, Nate Eovaldi, like those are all guys that could fall off the planet. And we haven't even talked about Shohei Ohtani, but like some of these players, like even Dylan Cease now, like too much needs to go their way for them to win at this point, right?
Pretty much. And if you're looking down that far, Tyler Glass now obviously is capable of being dominant. He's not been there so far. He's been good in 2 starts so far, but as they build him up and as more games happen, Tyler Glasnow's got certainly Cy Young stuff, and he is way down the list. And the irony is, look, obviously we don't know when this guy's coming back, but Carlos Rodon, we know he could be really good. Now he would have to hit the ground running, come back at a decent time, and win every start and then look like Carlos Rodon. But I think he's 150-1 on this list. I mean, look, he's not going to, most likely he's not going to come back and hit the ground running. But that's also a pretty pricey person for somebody that we know can be certainly dominant.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Another person who my eye is on, again, probably the injury is what deterred him. I took him before the season started, but I was a big believer in Tristan McKenzie coming into the year before he got hurt. Now he came back, 10 Ks in his first start, looked like Tristan McKenzie we know, and he looks fantastic. But again, the fact that he did miss 2 months of the season is probably going to kill any possibility that he has of taking home that award. But Matt, really enjoyed taking a deep dive into these markets. A couple of key takeaways for listeners is, again, one, build a portfolio. Think of this as a portfolio. You don't need to just bet one player and hope that that one player wins and then you cash out completely. You can have multiple players and still make money. 2 is do not be deploying full units on some of these players. Obviously, you see it 15-1, you want to get down. Like it looks like a juicy payout, but it's probably not the best way to go about it. Number 3 is be cautious when you're betting early because injuries are what can kill something. And also, you don't want to bet somebody who's getting steamed up. Again, like if Elly De La Cruz now is plus 350, you could have got him probably 10-1 3-4 days ago. That then constitutes a bad bet at this point. Matt, any final thoughts for you? Where can anybody find you? Any just key takeaways of betting in these future markets in general?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it all. Build a portfolio, go small, and try and ride the wave. I wouldn't go hedging anything in this market. Hedging, I mean, I'm not a hedger by trade. I don't really like hedging anything because my wagers usually aren't big enough where I'm worried that much about it. But if you've got a guy who's in first place, I would not hedge. I'm just not in that market here. I would just kind of try and ride the wave and see what happens. But yeah, small bets, build a portfolio, maybe try and get ahead of some trends. That's certainly something you can do and find great prices. I mean, the Javier thing is a tremendous price. So these are very interesting markets to take a look at. And if you do it right and you hit one, you can make a very nice profit.
You certainly can. Certainly can. I appreciate that, Matt. Matt, where can they find you? And you have anything going on for, obviously, we have a Thursday slate of baseball, which are always ugliest, but anything you have going up for today or maybe looking at in terms of a series or a game heading into tomorrow and the weekend?
Yeah, sportsmemo.com. A couple of things I might be interested in today. It's not the greatest card, not the greatest pitcher, so we might be sitting today out. But certainly you can find my stuff at sportsmemo.com.
Awesome. You can find, again, just picks at WagerTalk and sportsmemo.com for Gold Sheet and our daily MLB stat sheet where we do all the advanced research for you. You can find that at goldsheet.com. Thank you for tuning in to Turn 2 on behalf of Matt and I and WagerTalk and Gold Sheet. We appreciate you. We'll see you guys next time.